Good afternoon. I think we're good to go here. Are you doing 1:30? I'd like to call this meeting to order. The Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission, Wednesday, October 5, 2022, 1:30. I'd like to ask Jennifer for a roll call.
Danielle Henderson. Michael Whitmer.
Present.
Bill Howe.
Here.
Michael Drinkwater.
Here.
John Enlow.
Here.
John Flansburgh.
Here.
Nikki Hazelwood. John Martini.
Here.
Chris Melton.
Here.
Dave Solero.
Dwayne Smith, proxy for Dave.
Mervyn Wright. Kara Steelan. Here. We have a quorum.
Very good. Agenda item number 2 is public comments. We have none. Move on to the approval of the agenda. Item number 3. Move to approve.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Agenda number 4. Approval of the minutes from August 3, 2022. Entertain a motion to approve, or is there any discussion on that agenda item? Agenda item. Move to approve. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against. Agenda item number 5, report and discussion regarding the draft 2021-2040 comprehensive regional water management plan update. Kim?
Thank you, Vice Chairman Weaver, and good afternoon, members of the commission. It's good to see everybody today. So I promised at the last meeting that I would bring any comments that we received on the draft 2021-2040 regional water management plan to the commission. And at that August 3rd meeting, the commission recommended through resolution that we bring it to the WRWC on October 19th at a public hearing for adoption. So I'm happy to report we have received no public comments on the plan. I just wanted, and the reason I kept it an action item is I didn't want to preclude the board from taking action in case they needed to have some discussion around it, or if something did come up, or there was public comment that would come up during the meeting. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the board. Wait for your instruction.
So I'm not sure that there's really a action required if we've already. Is there any moment, make any comments? Hearing none, then we'll move on to item number 6, presentation on the Nevada Water Innovations Institute, enhanced source control for regional water reuse and resource protection, phase 1 report. Susan Krishna Pagida.
Do you want me to take a moment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let me get you up on the screen. And I'm learning how to do this, so please bear with me today. It's a new setup for me. Okay.
Okay.
All right, just let me know when you want me to.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm joined by Dr. Hopkins was on the project team, as well as Mr. Warner from associate. He's been helping on this project as well. If you remember, this planning commission recommended to the Western Regional Water Commission a little more than a year ago to look at the whole region in terms of what we need to monitor for that might interfere with our plans for water management, particularly effluent management in the region. So based on that, we developed a scope to look at enhanced source control, contaminants of emerging concern. Normal source control would be like a pre-treatment program to prevent industrial commercial discharges that affect the water reclamation facilities or the water quality or the sludge quality. But in the case of enhanced source control, we are looking at higher uses of the reclaimed water. So that's why we call it. And this is a national trend where communities which are looking at using reclaimed water for beneficial purpose are looking at how can we prevent these contaminants which are present at very, very low concentrations and very expensive to treat. And the traditional reclamation facilities are the advanced facilities. So we did this project in collaboration with the two cities and the county and their respective staff. Next slide, please. And we just completed the project on June 30th, and we submitted the report to the Planning Commission. It was reviewed by the Regional Effluent Management Team, several members of the Planning Commission, including Jim. And we have a hard copy of the report somewhere here, and I think you also got a copy in your file just now. So it's me on the top and Laura Hawk here, and Rick Warner. And then, of course, Laura Dell, she was a student at UNR when we started this project, and then she graduated, stayed Mr. Warner and this project. Now she works for AECOM. So I want to continue to acknowledge her on this matter. Of course, Kim and Jim were the project managers. So next slide, please. So what we want to do is basically Laura is going to take over from me for the next 6 or 7 slides, give you a snapshot of what we have done in phase one. Phase one was developing frameworks that will identify regulatory drivers, water quality drivers, end use of reclaimed water to enhance source control. And if one were to do it for each water reclamation facility. So we took 3 facilities, Stead water reclamation facilities in the North Valley is representative of the other 2 facilities, Port Cold Springs and Lemon Valley, and then South Rocky Meadows in the southern side of our Rocky Meadows, and then Tomball, which is the larger facility. And so we looked at regulatory review of what are some of the drivers from a regulatory point of view and future regulation that could affect what kind of contaminants we need to monitor and control at source within the collection system or before they get to the water reclamation facilities. But we also looked at several case studies across the country where advanced water use, such as indirect potable reuse, indirect potable reuse, is being considered in Arizona and California. And we picked 4 or 5 cases that really pertain to the relevant issues that we have in the region and documented those in the report. And lastly, we developed a framework for each of the 3 facilities that shows what is that facility specific. And I will show you, and Laura will show you some of the outcomes of that, particularly focusing on one facility. And many of you had a chance to look at this, both in print as well as part of the REMP. But then I'll come back and talk a little bit about what are the next steps in terms of doing phase 2, which is looking at individual facilities, designing a sampling plan, locations, frequencies, type of samples we take, what kind of contaminants we do monitor, and how do we get them analyzed to a certified lab so that you have the ammunition to either propose advanced uses of the reclaimed water or tell the regulatory agencies, here are the things that are present. We need to monitor only these going forward. Or you can tell them how we manage the collection system. Therefore, we don't have to do anything in the reclamation facilities, advanced treatment facilities. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura to take over and talk about phase 2 outcomes.
Thank you. So the drivers for the enhanced source control project, we're really looking to complement and build on the work that's already ongoing in the region. So it's in particular the Advanced Purified Water Demonstration Project at American Flat, and also complementing other regional effluent management studies. But as Dr. Vigila mentioned, enhanced source control can offer us a lot of other benefits too that shouldn't be discounted. In particular, preventing certain things from entering the collection systems that might be more effectively treated upstream or sent somewhere else upstream rather than trying to treat it downstream at the treatment facilities. And this allows us a more holistic approach as one of the components in wastewater treatment for public health protection and water quality protection. So the first major task in the report was the regulatory review, and I'll be focusing on the Rosewarp example throughout the slides just because they're kind of the furthest along in terms of looking at advanced purified water, and we did find that all of the regional facilities can considered advanced purified water as something that's potential in part of their regional effluent management plan. So Rosewarp is just a good example to use as a template that could be built on and adapted across the region. So conventional local limit studies are done by the cities currently. So that's looking at these regulations that for conventional work effluent that you'll see in that middle column there. And then those are adapted based on monitoring data and those regulatory requirements into the local limits that are applied to industrial users in the cities. Then when we're looking at enhanced source control, we're broadening that to also include the regulations that apply to advanced purified water. So looking at drinking water and primary and secondary drinking water regulations, and then also considering emerging pollutants that could become regulated in the future, like PFAS and methane dioxide. So this is, during the regulatory review, we developed our list of what constituents should be included based on those regulations and what areas we should focus on for the pollutant prioritization that haven't been a previous focus for the local limit studies. So then moving to the next slide, we'll see we then conducted a literature review where we looked at guidance documents for enhanced source control, as well as the regional programs that have been developed across the country. And the guidance documents are really broad frameworks that encompass, some of them are state level, so they do include some state regulations that are particular to those locations and guidance for their localities. And then others are more general guidance documents that establish the framework and focus on what are the essential elements for enhanced source control. And then we identified 3 regional programs. You'll see in the left column, most of the programs we found have been developed in California, but we tried to encompass a pretty broad geographic region, as well as programs of diverse sizes, scopes, and how far along they are in adopting potable reuse into their water portfolio. So those 3 were our focus. And from here, we were able to identify what kinds of drinking water constituents and emerging constituents they found, those regional programs found to be of concern for pollutant prioritization, and also what kind of methods they adopted to address some of those. So that can include public outreach to commercial industrial users, and mitigation plans, improving databases and things like that that can also help with response planning. So then on the next slide, we adapted all that information that we collected during those previous tests into a framework, which I'll get to in one second. But first, I'll focus on the first step of developing our frameworks was working with the agencies closely. They provided us with data regarding what kinds of industrial and commercial users were present in their sewer sheds. They gave us information on the monitoring data from special studies like PFAS studies, the Potable Reuse Demonstration Project, and then the conventional monitoring influent effluent from the treatment plants. So we use that to develop not only lists of a preliminary pollutant watch list, but also guidance on what kind of discharges they might expect from industrial users present in their sewer sheds based on information that was available without doing any monitoring. And then moving on to the next slide, that gave us good information to work with the agencies to develop frameworks that highlighted their specific needs and priorities for future enhanced source control efforts. So we identified from our literature review these 6 general categories of items under the enhanced source control. So the regulatory authority agencies, the characterization of the sewer sheds, conducting source investigations, inventories and databases for the chemicals and constituents associated with discharges, public outreach and response planning. Then we developed that into working with the agencies to identify specifically from the sub-items there, which are the most needed to address their effluent management and water quality management needs. So you'll see that a lot of the items highlighted in red fall under the characterization and assessment of the sewer shed and the source investigations, and then moving on into the inventory of chemicals and constituents and response planning. So our work proposed for phase 2 then it focuses on these items for the sewer sheds that are the most need and concern. So moving to the next slide, I'll give you an idea of how we're looking to develop those priorities for the sewer sheds. So under task 5, we would be focused more on the sewer shed characterization. So initially developing the monitoring and testing plans, working closely with the agencies, focusing first on the baseline characterization for the works, and then conducting that monitoring in the case of TOMORPH, also looking at biosolids management, for example, and then moving from there to identify what our initial list of pollutants are that we're most concerned with and developing that into our sewer shed characterization study. And overall, all that monitoring data will allow us to conduct a risk-based pollutant prioritization, and that moves into task 6, where we can develop that data into key deliverables based on our knowledge about what industrial, commercial, or domestic users are associated with some of our prioritized pollutants and how we can address them. And I'll give a little more detail. I hope I'm not taking too long. So on the next slide, just to briefly highlight task 5, in our phase 1 report, we provided these preliminary monitoring plans. So this is just a rough idea of what we would be looking to do, but it would be adapted based on our discussions with the agencies to determine the frequency, the locations, and the pollutant lists that we would be looking at, but conducting influent and effluent monitoring, followed by collection system monitoring a short while later once we have our preliminary prioritization of the pollutants. And so then this will give us the data we need for our risk-based assessment of those pollutants. And then on the next slide, you'll see in task 6, we would be using that so we would be able to develop characterizations of those industrial users based on the monitoring data. So that can feed into this mitigation and prevention planning. And for other pollutants that are prioritized, we'll review what are the best strategies, whether it's through controls or public outreach, commercial user outreach, or just database management to improve records and traceability of where the pollutants are going. Then on the next slide is another major deliverable anticipated under task 6. So that would be the regulatory response. So here we would be developing the strategic plans for how we would address anticipated regulatory requirements for enhanced source control monitoring. So this is envisioned as a way of developing future plans, long-term plans for the timing, frequency, likely sources, and other specifications for the prioritized pollutants, and also laying out which pollutants would not have to be prioritized for monitoring, because most of them we anticipate would be they won't be prioritized because they're not present at high enough concentrations, or they're simply not detectable in effluent wastewater. So this is essentially developing the rationale for targeted monitoring of only specific pollutants in the future. And with that, I'll hand it back to Dr. Begila to go over the.
Yeah, a couple of things that I would like to talk about, the next steps. So this is what we are proposing to. I had discussions with Kimberton about proposing to this commission or planning commission to look at task 5 and task 6 for funding going forward. As I mentioned, we ended phase 1 June 30th, so we are in between gap where we have submitted the report. So we're proposing an effort over 8 quarters, which allows us to, in the first quarter, develop a specific plan for a plant such as state water reclamation facility. And then once we have that under implementation, then we'll sample at least for 5 quarters to 6 quarters, 5 quarters to make sure that we do not miss anything and show that. And then the last quarter 9, is basically we will be addressing the final report comments from the community, from the Water Plan Commission, and the last stakeholders. So that's generally the schedule we have outlined for the next phase 2. Next slide, please. So here is the pitch. Next steps, we are going to request the Planning Commission to recommend to the Western Regional Water Commission to fund specific WRF sampling and monitoring plan and develop post-sampling strategy for control, prevention, and regulatory. A 2-year plan to conduct baseline and programmatic activities for enhanced source control, testing, and implementation starting January 1st. And we are, in addition to the funding and support from the Water Plan Commission and the Western Regional Water Commission, we would like to request from each of the entities that are operating that particular WRF to support sampling, monitoring, and testing of the samples we collect. Much of the cost of doing the work goes into really going and collecting samples from the field crew, maybe from your own crew, but sending the samples, we would like to send them to a certified laboratory, even for those that we can do in-house at UNR. We will do some metadata, water quality data in-house at UNR to correlate that to contaminants of emerging concern, but we still want to do those specialized contaminants at a commercial lab. That way you have the data that is defensible under the regulatory authorities when you want to go for permits or permissions for that. So that's basically, yeah. So, it's our opinion. We're not making Reno or Tamba to undertake Reno State, but based on what our evaluation is, that might be the first facility that we will look to develop a sampling and monitoring plan for that facility, both in the collection system at the WRF, and then start putting boots on the ground to collect samples every quarter and send it to the commercial lab. So that concludes our presentation. Mr. Warner, Lola, and I will be happy to take questions.
Questions from the board? Wayne, please.
Quickly, just I was curious more about task 6, the prioritized selection. Any involvement? What's been kind of contemplated there? How does our regulators fit into this process?
That's a step 6 where we engage. Here is what we have done for Plan A, and based upon the data that we collected, we can tell you we don't have anything in the Watershed where we have to do enhanced source control or even monitoring. Maybe once a year we collect 2 or 3 locations, or only at the WRF influent and those type of things. We cannot tailor it to NDP, but it's a function of what you are seeking from NDP. Just going,
right.
Informing them is one, as part of any of the other stakeholders. But beyond that, if you are looking at STAT as A+ permit, to really operate and check water into the ground, then they might say, hey, are you looking at these? We already looked into it. It's not present. 1,4-dioxane is not present. It is supposed to come from these sources, and we monitor if those sources are existing. In the future, the management plan is if we know of a potential industry or commercial establishment that can discharge 1,4-dioxane, we will consider that in, that what is the end use of the water before we allow them to establish the business in that solution stuff. So I think it's too soon to say how we engage in NEP, but we want to definitely inform them. You guys are proactive in terms of how to do enhanced source control. If all of the facilities were to look at the most value-added option, which is portable reuse, direct or direct, we have the data. We don't need to respond to them.
Thank you. Mr. Enlow?
Yeah, I was just going to compliment Krishna and the entire team. I mean, I thought that phase 1 report, you guys did an excellent job and really kind of opened my eyes to a number of things. I think everybody realizes, I mean, an enhanced source control program is a prerequisite for an A+ permit from NDEP. So this isn't something that we might want to do. This is something that we have to do, particularly up at Reno State. So I'm looking forward to moving forward with phase 2 on this. And in addition to monitoring, and I'm sure you would take this into consideration too, but I could see this being useful as, I'll just call it an early warning system, certain parameters within the wastewater collection system. If we see significant changes to pH, for example, or something like that, that it would at least make us aware, hey, there's something going on, and we could be watching more closely for it at Reno State to make sure that we're not getting any out of spec water going to the advanced treatment facility. So really exciting. I mean, I thought it was cool. I learned a lot and thought you guys did an excellent job. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
I would echo that. And I think it also helps that we have a very strong pre-treatment program in our region. So it's pretty much a model program. And so a lot of those conditions are generally in place, but I think we also have some of the teeth that we would need for how we would regulate those industries. However, we know what's going in and how it's affecting. So this is really helpful in that regard. And then I think as we move forward, this will help inform our program we currently have if we want to be making changes in our pre-treatment program. So anyway, thank you. Well done.
Any other questions or discussions?
Just one final comment. Again, congratulations on the report. Been well done. For those of us who were around when NPDES phase 2 hit, I think in general, we were all kind of caught a little bit behind the times and had to react to our regulators. I view this as a good step to kind of stay ahead of that so that if regulations change or something comes down from EPA that really kind of kicks this enhanced source control off, I'd rather be at a place where we at least got some data and some preliminary planning to respond to any regulatory issues that could come up. You know, they could come up in a year or 2 years or 5. I think it's better to at least have the data in order and kind of know where our plans are and what our plan as a region is to manage this before we're mandated to do so. So I would be in support of phase 2.
Thank you, John. I just want to make one quick comment. The experience we have gained in the last 2 years with COVID-19 monitoring through wastewater surveillance has really prepared us to do this work without any learning curve. We are, in fact, Laura has been setting up samplers at schools and manholes everywhere and senior care facilities and casinos and airport and so on and so forth. So we are ready. We have the capability to do it and the expertise to do this monitoring in each of the sewershed. We have poured over the sewershed maps very, very carefully. I think, as John mentioned, it's not just contaminants of emerging concern, but even you can put an annual program to look at, the salt in the wastewater. Salinity is going to be the #1 deal breaker of potable reuse going forward in the future. As we use less and less water, it's going to be more and more salty. You can only do more 2 or 3 cycles before you have to do something with the salt. So it's how can we prevent? In fact, Southern California Salinity Coalition looks at telling people not to dump their water softening units into the sewer and those type of things. Salt is not good for us. Salt is not good for the environment, not for the water. So it's really the public education campaign to minimize salt. And we don't have information where it is coming from. Is it coming from unintended discharge from a geothermal formation, or is it some company using salt for some applications is dumping it down? So every milligram of salt really matters even for your facility. Your effluent can be consumed as drinking water from a salinity point of view, but can be put in the truck either. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to present, as well as for supporting this project, and we'll be excited to continue to phase 2. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Greg.
It's kind of a no-brainer without any data or monitoring their data. We're not going to. We'll move on to agenda 7, a program manager's report. Brisbane.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Winter. So I wanted to do this before we do the priority setting exercise, the next item, just to quickly give you an overview of what's happening with the various projects we have on this fiscal year's budget. I have 4 project headings, we're only a quarter in, so some of the activity hasn't been reported yet, but some of the project headings that I wanted to go through were the DRI Precipitation Monitoring Network. Staff has met with DRI a couple times. Greg McCurdy is in charge of that project at DRI, and we're working with them to look at the data and see how to, or where would be the most appropriate place to house the data. We have a meeting next week with Jeremy Smith over at the Truckee Village Regional Planning Agency to go through how that data might be utilized in their natural resources plan. So we've got a lot of coordination going on, looking at making sure that that data becomes available for the public's use.
When and where is that meeting?
And next week is a Zoom meeting with my staff and Jeremy's staff. Would you like to participate?
I'll be available through Wednesday.
Okay, so if you want to send it on.
Well, it's kind of, I've been looking at this for quite a while. Haven't seen any action, so
We're trying.
I was actually bringing it to the table today, but I'll
Yes.
table that.
Great. I'll get with you over email on that project. The NWRI, National Water Resource Institute, held a virtual technical orientation workshop for the One Water Nevada technical team to get together and look at the treatment train that's being developed for the American Flat Project. And that meeting was held in preparation for the in-person meeting that will be coming up, and the Division of Environmental Protection and the Washoe County Health District will be invited to that meeting. The effluent guidance document, Brad Caldwell continues to work with the regional effluent management team to refine the Excel model. And that final draft report is being drafted currently, and we still anticipate that to be delivered
End of the year.
end of the year.
Yeah.
December is what I was. Okay, thanks, Jim. Data Instincts is currently working with WRWC staff on, as well as TUMWA on the communication plan for the One Water Nevada outreach efforts. What we're currently working on is getting a couple of site visits on the schedule for the WRWC board, as well as the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission members, to visit some advanced purified water facilities in Southern California, the Orange County Water District facility. They also have I think it's called the Albert Rogel Center for Water Recycling and Environmental Learning. And as we're looking at the potential for a research center or a public outreach center, that's one of the sites that Mark Milan would like to take some of the board members to, anybody who wants to participate. Then in Northern California, we're looking at the Monterey Pure Water Facility and the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center. Both of those, we're looking at January and February, 2 different trips that would be available for anybody who wants to attend. You can attend one or both. And so we'll be bringing that to the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission again at the joint meeting on November 2nd with the WRWC. So we'll have all the information, the logistics and all that information. I just wanted to report to you today that that's kind of ongoing work that we're doing right now. And with that, we also, you heard from Christian today, so I was going to just let you know that at the November 2nd meeting as well, we're looking at the phase 2, bringing forward the scope of work for phase 2 for the enhanced source control program. So we'll be looking to do that at the joint meeting, hopefully, and get that recommended for approval to the WRWC at that meeting. And then we're looking, I think fiscal year 23, we have a phase 2 scope of work, and Dwayne, maybe you can help me out with this on the Steamboat Creek, Steamboat Ditch evaluation study. That one will be, we put aside some budget for the phase 2 for that this year and for the next year. I understand the report is complete and they're refining that report and getting that prepared to bring forward. if you had anything to add on that one.
Yeah, I would say we've had a couple of workshops with City of Reno, Washoe County, and with the irrigation ditch company. Very productive through that effort, identifying a lot of the constraints, a lot of the issues. I will just say that when I first thought of this, I didn't think how complicated it was going to be, looking at all the nuances. But HDR has done a good job getting us to this next point, but to take it to that next level of actually implementing a project and looking at what those opportunities are, we need to take this to a phase 2. So we're going to be working on a updated proposal to come at the joint meeting to ask for additional funding to support that next phase of work. So a lot of good work has occurred. A lot of good information has come out of that. There's still more to do. We ask for support in the next fiscal year.
Great.
If I may, just on that project, it took a long time for various reasons to get it to a point, but we have gained a lot of momentum on that project over the last couple of months. And so just encouraged by the conversations, some of the options that have come with that. So look forward to being able to move forward with the next phase that actually develops what projects will be there.
Okay, any other questions? I'll turn it back over to the board. I just wanted to report a few project highlights. We're going to have an opportunity to discuss more of the projects in detail during the priorities workshop. So unless there's questions on the project manager's report for the projects or the financial statement, I'll turn it back over to you, Vice Chair.
Any comments, discussions on some of these projects? And then we'll move on to agenda 8, just a workshop to review the priority projects and studies listed in the WR Commission budget, discussion, etc.
Okay, Drew.
Up to you.
Okay,
You got
all
the
right.
floor.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. So I'm going to really quickly send out an email for all of you that will give you a link to the survey. Don't take the survey yet, but I just want to make sure and confirm that everybody gets the link before, so that we don't have any technical difficulties. So if you could check your email for me.
Oh, okay.
Did anybody not get the email with the link? Everybody got it. Okay. All right, good. Oh, you don't have it yet? Okay. I just sent it a minute ago, so it might take a minute. Well, while we're waiting, I'll just go ahead and give an overview. So I've included in your board packet the priority setting exercise polling worksheets. So I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to, this year I included a little brief overview of each project. I know last year I went through each project individually and gave that brief overview. I thought it might help be more efficient if I had included that beforehand and you had a chance to read through that before the meeting. So I hope that was helpful. And what I'd like to do, rather than going through each project, is open it up for the board to ask questions and have discussion among the board or with staff to discuss any of the projects that you might have questions on. And for open meeting law, what we need to do is have the discussion, then open it up for public comment, then take the poll. So, right, is that right? Yes. Okay. So I want to make sure that we follow that so that we have the meeting requirements satisfied. So once again, did you get it, John? Yeah.
No, I'm.
You got it. Okay, great. Great.
I'm struggling with my IT department. Sorry.
Oh, and if you don't get it,
It's got me locked down.
Are you on 2-factor already?
Yeah. Well, I'm not supposed to be, but I clearly am.
if we have any problems, I asked Birgit and Jen to bring their laptops. I can always have them pull it up on their laptops so you can take it on theirs if we found everything is public. So what I'm going to do is after discussion, I wanted to run through really quickly what this exercise will look like. Some of you saw it last year, but you might be a little bit unfamiliar with it if you weren't on the board last year. So what we're doing is we're going to, through the public meeting process, I have to display the results of the polling that we're going to take up on the screen with everybody's names and answers and how you voted for or how you ranked each project. Each project will get a 1 to 5 ranking, so 1 star to 5 star. You might have seen that in your board packet. And then what I do is I have a spreadsheet that's ready to tally all those scores up, and it will instantly display for you what your priorities look like for next year. Then I'll take that information back and I'll develop the budget and I'll get the materials ready to present at the joint meeting for discussion at the WCTV November. So the purpose of the scoring is to really help us rank the projects so that we can look at how that'll feed into and inform the budget development for fiscal year 24. So I'm just going to do a quick preview. I'm not taking it, I'm just doing a quick preview of the poll. So you'll get on the poll and you'll click continue. Don't do it now because we don't want to do it until after the discussion. This is just me showing you what we're going to do. You'll hit start survey now and then enter your name. That's important for the open meeting law requirements. I need to know who voted for what. And then the second question here is the high level priority planning categories. These are essentially the issues that we address in the regional water management plan. So what you'll want to do is just slide them in order of your priority, what you think the priorities would be for you for fiscal year 24.
So number 1 is their highest priority.
Number 1 is your highest priority. That this is not going to, so the way it'll score it on my worksheet is number 1 will get 5 points. Number 5 will get 1 point. So it'll rank it accordingly on my spreadsheet. And then each project is there with the project description, and all you need to do is, it won't let me move one unless I do. So name, and then you just hit 1 to 5 stars on the projects and rank them.
5 being the highest.
5 being the highest, thank you. So if you score at 5, it's getting 5 points. If you score at 1, it's getting 1 point.
Yeah.
So, and you'll do that for each project. And then at the end, hit submit. Oh, one more thing at the bottom, if there's any additional projects that come out of the board discussion, if somebody brings forward an additional project to take for consideration, I can quickly go in here and add that as an additional priority. And then it'll show up on the ranking and scoring. So if there's another project that you'd like to add last minute, we can do that. If not, you don't have to select any 1 to 5 stars on those 2 additional projects. Just ignore them. And then you'll hit submit and it'll thank you for taking the survey, and then I will show you the results. And I'm not going to do that right now because it's not collecting. Okay. All right, so did everybody, are we still waiting on links or you never got it? You didn't get it either?
John's almost done.
Okay, let me try again. And I'm on the, I'm gonna.
I think Jen's got.
I wonder if, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it on my phone. It's not just my laptop.
Okay. Trying to figure out if, can you get on any online meetings or anything? Copy it over.
Yeah.
Because I have a link, I can just copy the link and.
Go back to our network on the public. But I think I'm on team by 9, so you can maybe send it that way.
And where are these?
I'm on Teams online.
Teams online, okay.
So
You got me hooked up.
Because I had no problem. So-
If I put it in the REMT.
Well,
OneDrive, I'm on
I just
OneDrive.
rolled out this new
You're on OneDrive?
security
Yeah.
protocol that's not obviously mature.
But I'm also gonna log you out to the
So when you go to log on, you gotta go to your phone.
I mean,
And, well, that's one way to do it. First.
the other thing I can do, you know what, let me put the link on the screen.
There you go.
How about I do this?
I'm working.
Here.
Right, I gotta tell
Duh.
the Washington County.
Okay.
So I gotta log in to do that. I gotta, it's gotta, it's the circle, yeah, on the circle. Slide rules and. I still have mine. I
haven't in this case.
The circulars.
Am I supposed to be doing this?
Oh, wow. So what's the trailers, sometimes a slider, which is circulars.
Bear with me one minute.
Well, is it, there's any. Or is
Well, they're gonna do a log set. They'll do a log set.
I like to see that on mine. Mine slide rules.
I just should.
Okay.
This is one.
You didn't have sliders. You did not have a slider.
No.
Okay, there it is. Okay. Can you all see the link on the screen? It's a little bit. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. If I could share it. Oops, sorry.
Is that a 6I or 6-1 or A?
And then 6. It looks like an I. Capital I, yeah. Or A. Keep you fingers crossed. Got it? Got it? All right. John doesn't yet. I'm still watching the screen.
Our IT department's always doing something to us.
It's walking stuff.
But it's weird, it didn't come in on my phone, it's just not coming on. Yeah.
We've been having IT problems for the last week, so they could be on our end. Hopefully, once you get there, this will be really efficient.
Are we taking our survey now?
No, not yet. We have to have, I wanted to give an opportunity for discussion on the projects first, and then we have to go to public comment, and then we can.
You're gonna receive, so I missed it. It is.
Do you have that one?
We call the bombers to stand out in this.
Maybe I can see this. I don't hear it.
No, I had it. I thought it was.
John, do you want to take it on my computer?
Good news.
Well, WNT is again low, 50% higher than we used to.
And I got one license.
Right.
You can take it on mine. Let me get it started, and then I'll pass
We
my
had one of
computer
those
over
races
to you.
like round road. And it's one there for 107. It's a current.
Does anybody else not have it up?
Okay, so-
Everybody else has got it?
I do.
Okay,
I used to.
perfect. Okay, I'll hand John my computer when it's time to take the footage. So I did want to open it up for discussion, for questions and discussion about any of the projects, if you wanted to do that at this time. And then Vice Chairman Winder, you can open it up for minutes of discussion.
So how do we want to do this? Just go through each one and you want to answer any questions? Or does anybody have something painful they need to get out right now?
I had a couple of specific questions related to the project. I think Dwayne and John kind of touched on that Steamboat Ditch flood evaluation study phase 2. Have we been presented with the phase 1 results, this group?
Just held 2 workshops back to back, and where we've now are launching alternatives, and they're being something put together. I was going to make a recommendation under commission comments about putting that on a future agenda to bring that back to your.
Yeah, presentation of phase 1. Yeah.
It was kind of the same comment on the water quality credit program phase 2. Have we seen any of the results of the phase 1 on that either? I just don't remember.
I don't recall.
Do you want me to? I think they're really still at the beginning phases of that. And Birgit can help me. She's been working with Teresa Jones over there on the project that the Stormwater Committee is doing. My understanding is she would like it as a placeholder. They're not far enough along in phase 1 to really know what phase 2 is going to look like or have a scope on that. So she wanted to make sure that they had enough for phase 2, as phase 2 activities come out. And of course, that would be brought before the board for approval. So there is,
Yeah, just an update on that. They have prepared a preliminary framework booklet and have had a meeting with NDEP, received comments, and so really very beginning stages, she said, just kind of where they're at. So it's not ready for presentation for the phase 1.
Yeah, it's difficult to prioritize a phase 2 project like that when we don't even know what phase 1 even recommendations are. Is it worth prioritizing high that phase 2 project? I don't know. I have no idea.
And I think if we can get through the regulatory hurdles, it has the potential to provide a really great benefit in our community. So I think it's still important for the prioritization. But again, it's a little bit behind.
Right?
Well, I was just going to ask, I think John brings up a good point about not being able to prioritize that phase 2. What is the feeling of mid-year kind of requests and those types of things? I think the board really likes to be able to figure out the FY24 budget and the process and the priorities and those things, but things do come up. I'm just asking, what is the better way? Is it to hold off and not even prioritize this, or to wait for that potential request to come and then figure it out, kind of then?
that's a good question, really good question.
And I think last year when we were contemplating this, we thought that maybe in this coming fiscal year, instead of fully budgeting, we were going to leave some money aside because we could see some of these things were tracking differently in time, were taking a little longer, having a reserve fund so that, as the projects came in and requested additional funding, we'd be able to respond kind of mid-year. So I think we thought about that last year.
Yeah.
Fair.
Similar argument or similar question on Steamboat Ditch flood, right? It's an ongoing effort. Where are we?
Well,
That's on
I'm sorry. Over.
the Steamboat Ditch phase.
Steamboat Ditch. I'm sorry. I was thinking Lemon Valley.
It's Lemon Valley.
Yeah. Sorry.
On that note, then how's Swan Valley?
it's a placeholder. So, and that's a fair, I had sent Kim an email prior just to say, hey, there's some of the projects, there's more work to be done. And if we want to kind of hold back budget, we don't want to prioritize those, focus on the important things. Now, I think that's a more than legitimate to look at that. Lemon Valley could fit into that, but I will tell you that we've done 3 studies. Those 3 studies are, 2 of them are associated with the lake itself and impacts from flood events. The details on those are one is a pumping out option, a little bit more in alignment with what the city of Reno has done recently with the American Flat irrigation project, kind of building on that. The second report, that was done by Brown and Caldwell. The second report was done by, I want to say Terraphase, but I know that's not right. It was Claire Archer, so that would have been Cardinal before she went to Tentative. That was upstream diversions and upstream retention and looking for those large scale opportunities there. The third is the work on the BFE, changes to the base flood elevation for Swan Lake in collaboration with the city of Reno. That's a HDR contract. That work is completed, and we are developing the strategy to go out to the community under the current FEMA guidelines and processes to change that BFE for Swan Lake. These were all required to kind of set us up for the next level of mitigation efforts. So I think that there's a real high likelihood, like that in this next, I mean, there's some work to be done to roll out the BFE change. There's some effort that's required there, but I would legitimately say within the next 6 months, there's probably going to be the second phase is going to be ready. But I wasn't going to, again, thinking placeholder, but
Right.
I would be remiss not to come to this board and also to the WRWC to make a presentation update on the work that's been done. So again, if you want to wait and hold off on something like that, I think that's more than fair kind of approach.
How will your survey, should we put a star next to some of these projects that are placeholders, or should we leave it blank if they are placeholders?
I would, every single one requires a 1 to 5. You can't make a blank and finish the survey. So if you can give it a 1, and then it'll show up the lowest priority. And then when I bring it back for discussion, you can say, hey, if there's 20 projects and they got 12 stars, because there's 12 board members or 11 board members, it's a low priority, and we don't want to include that in the budget for tentative service professional detail. You can give me direction however you would like, but the survey, you have to give at least a 1 star.
Yeah. Okay. Because there is a project I want to give a 1 to, because I don't think it's a high priority, but
You can give
these
them 2.
placeholders are a higher priority than this one I want to give a 1 to.
Yeah.
What a dilemma.
That's a dilemma, yeah.
So give that
Well,
two.
you could find a 5. So I guess you could do, ones that you don't really see as a priority for funding, I would give those a 1. And then if you see maybe a placeholder is important, but not really as important for fiscal year 24 as others, you can give it a 2.
I'm sensing John's missing his blue dots.
Well, he didn't bring him, they already checked. First came at the door. They did not.
I have another question then on the Cold Springs water balance. There's going to be a report coming out at the end of this year.
Yeah, actually pretty exciting. We're wrapping up the first phase, which was the rapid infiltration basin capacities. And that actually, I will tell you, just got the draft report yesterday or emailed this morning from Claire Archer and Stantec. And so there's some QA and QC that we want to get some others involved, Great Bowl specifically. So I look forward to getting an update on that. And yes, then I would like to step into the next phase, which is the water balance of the basin. And that's going to take some work to develop that phase, but I think this is, we're right there. It's good stuff.
Anyone else have any questions about some of these projects? Seeing none, then I'll open it up to public comment. We have no comments from the public, so we're ready to start our survey.
I'm going to stop sharing, but on my screen. No, you're fine. Okay, my mouse. I'm not reading my mouse.
We can go? Ready, set, go.
Score away.
Kim Line's asking me to vote on the additional priorities. The one on the bottom that says I have to click something.
You have to click something, just keep it along. Well, I'll ignore it, I'll delete it off. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Does anybody else need anything here?
Oh, look at what you voted against. It's a double.
Everybody can drink water. Don't show up.
The voting machines. No idea. Thank you for rescuing me on my controls.
I'll send it out.
I don't know. We use the I just tried to answer a question out of work. Skip a bunch.
I wouldn't let you.
Would you like
Yeah, that's okay.
It's actually showed yesterday. It's getting funded. It started with something.
Okay, good. Put you on
Maybe, but
yeah. It's not your comment.
That's a bit. You know, it's much. So it's on 29 minutes ago. WT was a little better again, but they're 50% higher than they were. Yeah, it's a little bit lower than I was expecting.
Getting more than one.
I'm looking because I don't know. I mean, I didn't recognize it, so it didn't stick. And one interesting, one guy. Okay. Catch you all. No.
Thank you. John's trying to use that.
And you'll never lose at $1 there you come for that.
So did everybody get a chance to finish? Okay, I'll give you 4 minutes.
I haven't heard any discussion about additional priorities.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Wednesday, I'm gonna delete them. Since nobody brought anything up.
Oh, so born trees. So on the additional priority question about it's just telling me that it's a required question.
I apologize. Not required, so I get a 1 star once I transfer it over the other.
She's been, okay, so she's been, she's going
And take the survey again.
Don't do it again. Okay.
Doing all right.
We're not gonna let this Jim be. She's gonna be a busy guy.
Like 7 results.
I don't know what's going on. We don't have a relationship.
I mean, yeah, her and your spouse. No, and be there, right after there.
Has everybody submitted?
We carry all of it. He's asked off.
Do you want? It's a circuit.
Oh, it's good. Looks like he didn't know anything.
I missed somebody's.
She's fine.
He,
Yeah. He's asked on income. She looks at it. Science problems.
Yeah, she's on the survey talk. I guess it's like, you know, can't just, didn't exercise.
But yeah, hopefully one of my stuff.
oh, it's totally.
She's got.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't think she's got
I told you, where was this? Last time I saw her. She's I crossed my village.
Oh, see, I haven't gotten it yet. Well, fuzzy around the edge.
I said, I can use the cat.
So
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and show you all the results.
Stop smoking.
And so apparently, right, well,
Do sunglasses.
Stop.
On the flight results.
Pretty good. Sure, a lot of years.
Okay.
Yes, right.
yes. Well, you guys are all trying to manage.
Well, no, we're worried. Deteriorating traffic. Right now, nothing.
You guys ready?
Oh, hey.
Okay, so wait, survey.
So this is the survey results. For the open public meeting law requirements, Lucas has told me that I must show everybody's results next to their name. So I'm going to briefly just scan through this for the record, and then I'll show you an easier way to see the result. I did create a graph for you. So I'm just gonna, just for the sake of the video, scroll through all your scores and you'll see that they all totaled. Is that slow enough, Lucas?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then you'll see I didn't have I took the additional projects off, so those don't belong. Okay, so on the overall subjects, this is how you rank the subjects. So we have can you not see it? It's just, okay. Can you move them just on the main screen and side?
Right to the top.
Yeah, I'll let you do that. It's weird to not be able to control what's being displayed there from here. I'm just not used to it. Can you minimize it? Just get rid of it?
It really wouldn't let me minimize it.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
No.
But that should be nice for this. Okay. So it looks like they all ranked pretty high.
Low is good. Low is good on this one.
No, actually, I converted it on this one.
No.
How could we find out? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I set it up with the formula that takes, so a 3 is a 3, but if you gave it a 4, it turns into a 2. If you gave it a 2, it turns into a 4. So this would have been, so you can see my programming in there.
1 to 5 stars. 5 stars was the highest priority.
No, this is not the star. This is where you slid them
Okay.
and ranked them 1 to 5, the higher level subjects. And so what I do with these is I take the percentages. If there's a tie between a project and not enough, we felt like we needed to look at the funding on that. We could say, well, we felt like, effluent management ranked a little higher as a priority of fiscal year 24. So you could give that a little bit higher to ranking.
So I think I was number 2 on your list, and I ranked it as my highest priority, wastewater, drinking water. And so it's a 1.
Yeah.
And then it shows up as 15. And so it's prioritized. So low is good.
Low is good.
according to
Yeah,
that.
right. That was good.
That's how it should be.
Okay, I'm gonna double check this.
Yeah, that would
I'll bring these results back to you at the next meeting. I thought I had that
You
right.
got to make sense.
Yeah, I think we have background projects than anything.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll have to double check that because if you scored it a 1, I would give it a score of a 5. That's what this, so I'll have to look at it.
That didn't work.
Yeah, that didn't work. Okay, forget you saw that. Let's look at this. So let me resort these. Okay, so this is a better view of what those priorities. So that looks like the One Water Nevada Communication Plan ranked the highest in importance, and then it looked like the top 3 are the effluent management projects, and then going down stormwater permit coordinating. Is that the program implementation project? Yeah. Effluent guidance document, independent advisory panel, advanced purified water research facility, TMRP shared work program. So this is the SNJ STEM education that we would like to get them involved with working with data instincts on that communication plan. Water usage review, stormwater permit coordinating committee, that's the program update pending the permit update, watershed assessments with the stormwater permit coordinating committee, Cold Springs water balance, DRI precipitation monitoring, Truckee River Fund, One Truckee River Plan implementation, Steamboat Ditch flood evacuation, Washoe ET, NLA, Washoe County Lemon Valley, and Stormwater Permit Coordinating Committee Water Quality Credit Program. So what I'll do with these is I'll try to feed them into our tentative services budget. And I always show this to you at the meeting just because I want you to be able to see in fiscal year 23, I compare to what we put in the budget for fiscal year 23 versus if we were to fund every single project that was listed in this exercise, we would be $50,000 over what we budgeted last year. So it's pretty close on what we budget. But if the board is looking at potentially holding some money aside and not tying it up to specific projects, I can bring that back next time. So if you wanted to give me some direction on how you would like that to look, for bringing that forward at the November joint meeting, that would be helpful.
Kim, would you take a look at, as you look through the data, kind of a dividing line on projects that rank low, take that money out and tell us how much that is?
Sure.
Kim, just so I'm clear, the second column, you did put in project contingency funds, the 135.
Yes.
So it is in there just as it was last year. Thank you.
So what I'm hearing is I should have, a dividing line of what we think the main priorities are versus projects that are conceptual projects and not yet implemented and scored a little bit lower, ranked a little bit lower. And then would you like to see, this is the budget if all projects are put forward, and then another budget line that if those were taken out.
Yeah, how much
that would be?
cash is left over? We had some discussion earlier about some of these projects are coming along, and we're gonna get some phase 2 proposals after we see the results of phase 1. With the money bank, if you will, I think it'll give us the latitude to see where it ranked, see what the results were, talk amongst, us in a public hearing, and
Make a
at least
recommendation.
have some cash if we do choose to fund.
And then make a recommendation to WRWC.
Yeah.
It seems to me there's like 2 or 3 of these, which every year seem to be getting low votes, not a lot of support for. I just wonder if we need to discuss those.
Yeah.
Not today, but
I would encourage all the discussion. I have to stay in my lane. These are all, projects that are brought forward regionally. If there's any discussion that needs to happen on projects, this is the time to do it.
On the regional water management plan, there's 75,000. Is that actually going to be spent?
It may or may not be spent depending on if the WWC adopts the plan.
Okay.
in
So
November.
it's possible that it's another 75,000 available.
Yes.
Okay.
I kept it as a placeholder pending adoption of the plan. And there's also some of the board members have expressed that they really appreciate the cost analysis, the memorandum that HEC does that looks at, the impacts of our fees on development and fees associated with water projects. So I thought if I kept it in there and the board decided that they wanted to see that more often, we can engage her again. And instead of doing it every 5 years for that plan update, we could do that every 2 or 3 years so that there's a tool out there for you to look at. It's up to the board.
So do we have any more discussion or questions?
Did you want to look at the results again for a few more minutes?
John, do you see that on that break you were looking for?
Yeah, to me, it looks like somewhere between probably 34 and 30 maybe, or 30 and 29. I think from 30 down, maybe those are your candidates.
The visual, yeah.
Yeah, just visually looking at where a break line might be.
And for the One Turkey River plan implementation, do you know what that's specifically going to be used for? Kind of just broadly for programs or for funding, staff time?
I'm going to let Birgit address that. She's really good hires.
Birgit Whittegren for the record. We actually have a proposal with 3 main tasks. The majority of it is outreach through the River Friendly program. That's the majority of it. There's also fund development in there as well. And then there is some that is administration.
Okay.
What other funding sources do they have? Do you know?
Birgit Whittegren again, I'm not really sure since I'm not an NDEP anymore, but I do believe they requested 319 funds. They're going through their review process at the moment. I don't know if they'll receive them or not. I also know that they continue to receive Truckee River Fund money as well, but they're looking to augment their funding with other sources. That was one of the tasks that is proposed here.
And I think that project, the first phase of that ended in December. So she had to wait until approval for June or July 1st to start up again with our funding. So so she's had 3 months to get it going again.
And I think the amount that she's been requesting is going down too, so that's good.
They are applying for 319 funding for the river friendly landscaping program.
Anything further?
Can I just ask a question? What's involved in those watershed assessments?
So, we look at the watershed, so in particular, we look up into the watershed at what streams are degraded, and come up with plans for those that then turn into projects. So on Chalk Creek, they did watershed assessments and then we are picking away at them, if you will. And then we seek 319 grant funding to do actual projects on them. And that'll, obviously, that's your watershed wide contribution to the Truckee River. So
It's in the training concept.
it does. So potentially, yeah, those projects would be the projects that you would trade the credits for if we get to that.
I know, John, that's
All watershed to contribute to the Truckee, well, or basically, we're started that.
It's a requirement of the discharge permit.
Okay. And then, John, can you guys comment on where the city is at with respect to standing for the stormwater utility?
I can. We are currently doing targeted outreach to some of the larger contributors. We are looking to start a business impact statement in November and bring it to council early 2023.
So I'm assuming this utility, you'd have its own funding source. Would that eventually lessen the need for some of the funding that, like the Stormwater Permit Coordinating Committee gets from this group? Because I know it was during the recession when I think this group funded that Stormwater Permit Coordinating Committee, and then it's just continued on. Just to ask a question.
The Stormwater Permit Coordinating Committee is for the MS4 permit and includes Watershed County Parks and the City of Reno. The City of Reno's stormwater utility is focused on CIP project improvements, not managing that permit.
And more flow, not water quality.
Well, there will be water quality benefits, but we said that the Stormwater Permit Coordinating Committee includes all the project elements. So outreach, there's a whole bunch of requirements that's what that program funds.
It is possible it could be revisited. But just know that it's all of the entity, Sparks, Washoe County, Reno, NDOT, there's a lot of partners in that all have their equal share of the program. So
Reno's not going to take over that portion,
yeah,
right?
It's not like it's going to become 100% funded out of the Reno stormwater.
Can I chime in, John?
Yes.
So if we think that that's something we want to take out of the funding stream, Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County are getting really fast because we're working on our fiscal 24 budgets right now. And I'd have to load Sparks to share back in.
Yeah, I'm not recommending, I was just asking the question.
No, I'm just saying if-
Stormwater utility would it lessen the need in the future? Maybe.
We funded it out of our enterprise fund. I think Reno, funded it out of the general fund once upon a time. And I'm not sure where the county
General fund.
out of the general fund. So if that's a shift we want to do as a recommendation up to WRWC, we need to decide quickly because we got to load it into our individual budgets.
I think we actually did a sewer fund because our sewer fund was a combined.
Right, that was combined.
And so the stormwater utility would actually see a reduction in the sewer user fee rate, but then there would be the enhanced program because of the capital projects that the programs.
Okay, thanks. But John, your point's well taken that it was the recession that moved it into this funding source.
And it is significant.
And maybe we're heading for another recession. I don't know. Maybe we should pull it so we can hit the next recession. I don't know.
Hey, anything else? With that, then, this is an action item. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept results of the survey.
Other than the first 1 through 5 ranking.
Yeah, we need some clarity.
Possible recommendation of the Western Regional Water.
And then do we also want, even to do some, bring back the project level funding with and without the low scores?
Mr. Chair, question.
Yes.
Can we have time to see this at one more meeting before we need to take it up to the WRWC, or do they need it quickly?
No, this will, as far as the results of this survey, I was just going to bring to the joint meeting because I thought it would be
But
interesting.
it's really going to load into next year's budget for the WRWC.
But we won't get it approved at the November meeting. It'll just be a report item.
Kind of information.
It can be an information item in November. And you can give me direction at that meeting to do whatever with the information.
Well, I'll try a motion. Can we move to continue this to our next meeting for follow-up information based on our conversations today? Does that meet the board's needs?
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that?
Does that work for you? Don't we have a joint meeting?
We have a joint meeting on November 2nd, so I was just looking for direction from the board to take the information and prepare it in a way that could represent it for, do the analysis.
On March.
That's okay.
I was just thinking,
I will pull my motion for a second. Thank you.
So for discussion,
Yes.
so our next meeting is our regularly scheduled time for the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission, but it's actually going to be a joint meeting on that day with WRWC. So that's when we would see this nexus with RWC. So with that, I think we could craft a motion. Could do that.
Absolutely.
All right.
I haven't drawn mine.
I would move that we move to direct staff to tabulate the results, review the priority setting as each commissioner had put it, or each commissioner had put it in, and to rank the projects with the ones at 30 or below to separate those out with in and a second option without, and to move funding for some of those items into a contingency on your second option, and to bring that back to the joint meeting on November 2nd.
Well said. I will second that.
Further discussion at all? So we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 9, discussion regarding location, possible agenda items for upcoming meetings, plural, not just the next one, possible direction to staff. Kim?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Permission for the record. So the next meeting that I just wanted to mention is obviously the WCTV public hearing, October 19th, to adopt the 2021-2040 Regional Water Management Plan. I wanted to extend the invite to any commissioners who would like to come in support of that meeting on October 19th. It'll be at 9 o'clock at 10 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah, there's a special annual. Yes, so we're doing ours at 9 o'clock, yours starts at 10. So we'll also be getting our budget audit reviewed at that meeting. And so the next meeting for the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission is November 2nd as our joint meeting with the WWC. And from what I've heard today, we'll bring forward the UNR and WII Phase 2 scope of work for the Enhanced Source Control Program. Have a few presentations. It sounded like maybe the RIB analysis presentation. Would that be something that we wanted to?
don't know if it'll be ready for that.
Okay.
We were thinking, John and I were thinking the steamboat ditch analysis.
Steamboat dish analysis, okay. And any other projects that I guess I wanted to solicit from the board, any other projects that you feel would be good for the Western Regional Water Commission to hear prior to our workshop results discussion.
Well, I have a project or an agenda item I'd like to see, but it could certainly wait till December, and that's an update on the Truckee River Flood Alert Program. We're rolling into our flood season. Haven't heard anything about that. I'd like to see a summary of what's going on and have an opportunity to ask questions on data. But it doesn't have to be in November.
Would it be okay? I was also going to bring forward to the board that I will not be in town the week of the December Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission meeting. So if there's nothing pressing, I wanted to get all the parties workshop done, get the projects approved in November, and maybe reconvene in January. So.
Actually, I won't be in town either. So.
Okay.
That's a better track. Hope we don't get rain on snow in December.
Kim, I have no issue with canceling the December meeting. Be wonderful. December's full already.
Okay. So yeah, if there's no.
Point of information, wait, no, I gotta learn how to read the calendar. Never mind, I was on the wrong month. I was looking at the first of January would be a Wednesday, but that was the 1st of February. Like I said, I just need to learn how to read.
I did check it. It looked like the January meeting would be January 7th. Am I right on? 4th? It would be New Year's week is the week before, right? So it doesn't follow New Year's week. Was my hope. I gotta check that out.
It does. How many calendars does it take?
Well, I had it.
It is New Year's Eve, yeah.
It's the 4th. Okay, you're good, just read it up. And the 1st is on Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yes.
So the next meeting would be November 2nd. Following meeting would be January 4th. That's okay. Okay. And then of course, I'll check in with all of you on any additional presentations or topics that we might discuss at the November 2nd joint meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you, Chairman. Vice Chairman.
Any commission comments? Item number 10. Yes,
Can
sir.
I just ask to have, no, you said that public hearing is on the 17th? 19th, that time work. Can you send an invite out for that? Just so we're aware?
I will. I think Jen's trying to copy all of you on the Western Regional Water Commission meetings now from now on.
Okay.
So you're aware.
No.
Okay. Then no.
Staff comments?
We have none. Thank you.
And apparently there's no public comments. Not hearing any of your team, then move for adjournment.
Yeah, just